Okay, it's Tuesday evening, May 6th, and I'm down in the back of my garden. You can see there's a chicken coop, and this is a mulberry tree behind me, Illinois everbearing mulberry. There's there's an asparagus that got away from me that didn't get harvested. So I'm down in the back of the garden, and I actually want to talk a little bit more about why it is and how and why it is that fascist regimes attack education. The classic authoritarian move is to come for colleges and universities, to both villainize education, make it harder for people to get an education because they know that an ignorant populace is easier to control, but then also to seize control of universities and to turn them into a propaganda machine for the regime. Is usually an early move of authoritarian regimes to come for colleges and universities, and we saw them attack Columbia University, who folded like a chair, sold out their students in a heartbeat. And then we watched them come for Harvard, who said, go fuck yourself. We are standing by our principles and we will not be collaborators with this fascist regime. And then we watched 80-something colleges and universities around the country, and I think the number is now up to over 300 that have signed on in solidarity with Harvard. We are watching big colleges form together as these coalitions to stand up to the Trump regime. And we know that when we're talking about pillars of support that uphold authoritarian dictators, that, the pillars of support include the media and the military and the legislature and the courts, but also includes colleges and universities. That's one of the reasons that Trump tried to secure the loyalty, right? Tried to blackmail and extort and then secure the loyalty of colleges right from the get-go, because he wants that pillar loyal to him. He knows he needs them to help prop him up. And so the fact that we are seeing so many colleges and universities, look at what happened to Columbia, look at the massive public outcry against Columbia, and all of these colleges and universities finding their spine and saying, we will be non-cooperative with this regime. We will stand up to this regime. We refuse to be a pillar that upholds what Trump is doing. That weakens him. In less than 100 days, that has weakened him significantly. Because it's not just us as individuals that are stronger when we come together and link arm in arm and stand up against fascism. Institutions that band together, they also have that strength in numbers, and they are able to withstand what the regime is doing. They want to isolate not only colleges and universities and law firms and people and pick them off one by one, but they understand that what they want to do is keep us separate, because when we do come together, when we form coalitions, when we form a solidarity movement, this regime will topple. They cannot withstand that. They cannot maintain their grasp on power when we all come together and form a cohesive resistance. And so it's a real bad scene for Trump that already we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of colleges and universities say, no, we're not going to play along with you. We are going to stand up to what you're doing. We're going to hold the line. But it's more than just the institutions of colleges and universities themselves that pose a threat to Trump. It's the students within them. And I actually want to reference a Guardian piece from a couple of years ago, because, man, if you look back on just a few years ago, you can see how the road was being paved to get us where we are today. You could see the authoritarian creep coming, and hindsight is really 2020. Looking back on those articles from a few years ago, where all kinds of people, not just the Guardian, but people all over the world and all over the US were screaming about authoritarian creep, and were screaming that, like, this is going to get bad, and we weren't listening. It's so easy now to see what folks were talking about before the election and how all of it has come true. But in particular, I want to look at this Guardian article because they were talking about what happened in Bangladesh. And I'm sorry, I have to use the overlay with the googly eyes so that y'all can see the script, because I'm going to have to read from my screenshots because I'm down in the garden and I don't have my laptop in front of me. The piece is entitled "Why Fascists Hate Universities" by Jason Stanley, and this came out last September. Authoritarians and would-be authoritarians are only too aware that universities are primary sites of critique and dissent. I didn't know back then in detail what happened in Bangladesh, and you may not either, so let me read this real quick. In Bangladesh, something remarkable has happened, initially in response to a quota system that reserved the majority of government jobs for specific groups. University students initiated large-scale nonviolent protests. Bangladesh's increasingly autocratic Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina responded essentially saying, let them eat cake. So instead of calming the protests down, obviously this response made the protests go nationwide. So in mid-July of last year, the government responded with extreme violence. The police gunned down hundreds of students and shut down the internet across the country. Scenes of extreme police brutality flooded social media. Okay, I want to break away from the article for a second here. Remember when I said that we must be committed to nonviolent discipline? Because when you engage in violence, that will delegitimize your cause. That's true for the other side as well. When the authoritarian regime cracks down excessively, when they engage in violence against innocent, unarmed, nonviolent protesters, that tends to backfire for them heavily. They lose the support of people that might have otherwise continued to follow them. That's what we saw in Bangladesh. Because the scenes of what the cops were doing, their extreme brutality, was posted all over the internet. By the end of July, the protests had grown into a nationwide pro-democracy movement. Eventually, the military itself joined the students, and guess what? Their autocratic would-be dictator, Hasina, fled the country. A nationwide student-led democracy movement successfully challenged a violent autocratic leader. Bangladesh's non-violent student movement has not gone unnoticed in neighboring countries. The article then goes on to talk about how the success of non-violent student movements and the prospect of pro-democracy, non-violent resistance spreading to other countries and being successful, that is a nightmare that every autocratic regime fears. Authoritarians and would-be authoritarians are aware that universities are the primary sites where dissent grows. Because of this, authoritarian regimes are very quick to crack down on universities. It's one of their first targets. The article then goes on to talk about India. Their autocratic-minded nationalist prime minister, Modi, has ruled the country since 2014, and he loves to attack India's universities, call them anti-India. Similarly, Hungary's autocratic Prime Minister Viktor Orban started a political campaign with an attack on Central European University in Budapest. Remember, Trump loves Orban and loves to take plays from his autocratic playbook, so this will sound familiar to you. Orban accused Central European University of spreading, quote, gender ideology, and he was able to drive the university out of the country. The situation is structurally the same in the United States. Would-be authoritarians and one-party states centrally target universities with the aim of restricting dissent. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, a graduate of Yale University and Harvard Law School himself, is an aspiring autocrat who has used the myth of widespread voter fraud to restrict severely minority voting. Guardian is correct. Voter fraud basically doesn't happen in the United States. Massive voter suppression does, though. Besides minority voting populations, DeSantis has focused on public and higher education as central targets. This was going on before Trump got elected. None of this stuff is new here. The far right has been playing at these authoritarian tactics for years, especially in Republican-led states, trying to vilify, undermine, undercut our universities. I mean, look at Tennessee that now has a ban on teaching, quote, divisive concepts, and also has a form where people can narc on their professors for teaching such awful things as intersectionality. Attacks on voting and democratic systems generally almost invariably center on universities. Then candidate J.D. Vance, who, by the way, is a Yale Law School graduate, said last year in a conference that, quote, professors are the enemy. These guys all went to their Ivy League schools. They all have their law degrees. Do not be fooled. They want education for them and for their children. They just want to deprive you of your education. They are vilifying colleges and universities. They are vilifying professors and higher ed. And they want to make it harder for us working class people to have our children access education, knowledge, history. But they sure as fuck are making sure that they and their children get to go to colleges, universities, grad schools, law schools. They are trying to consolidate education amongst the elite and deprive working class people of access. The article then goes on to talk about the severe crackdowns against college protesters who are protesting what is happening in Palestine. In this line, it is not implausible to take the goal to have been, at least largely, a preliminary show of police power to university students. In the United States, the Republican Party has long been aware of the democratic potential of student movements. As it lurches closer and closer to authoritarianism, it will, like all right-wing authoritarian movements worldwide, seek to crush dissent, starting with university students and faculty. With great courage and determination, the students in Bangladesh have shown that this strategy can be made to backfire. They are coming for universities and they are coming for our students because they know how much of a threat both pose to authoritarian regimes, which is why it is so important that we bond together and form a united resistance where we will be effective.